You've been seeking answers from every dermatologist, doctor, and all over the internet, wondering what on earth this unbearable skin issue is. You know something's up, and you've been suffering and silenced for far too long. This podcast is going to bring awareness to the brutal reality that is topical steroid addiction and withdrawal syndrome. It will give you practical mental and physical tips to help you along your journey and provide you the strength you need to push through each day. You'll hear from real people battling this illness, as well as experts in the field, and I'm also going to share with you what's happening as I battle and conquer TSW. You are not alone, you're not crazy, and you will heal. If there's one thing I know, it's that anyone going through this hell is a warrior. My name is Jennifer Powers, and I welcome you to TSW Journey to Healing. Okay, welcome, Brenda, to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
It's nice to get to talk to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those listening, Brenda and I met through a Facebook group, a nice support group, really wonderful community that anybody going through, you've heard me say this in the show many times, you're going to continue to hear me say it, but ITSAN is a phenomenal resource. Highly suggest everybody go check it out. If you need the link for it, you can check the show notes. You can also go to the website, tswjourneytohealing.com, and it is in there right on the homepage for you. But I want to welcome Brenda. Brenda, you're based in Colorado. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. I love how far and wide the show can really, the reach can go and how many people are suffering and struggling with this and how amazing. That's one thing I love about social media is connecting all of us together. And it's really awesome to make friendships and connections. Yeah. And I'm so glad to have you as one of my connections and friends. So why don't we start from the beginning? I'd love you to tell everybody about your background and the backstory of how this whole journey kind of evolved for you.
Okay. Well, I've been an acupuncturist since 2007, and I'm a classically trained acupuncturist. Most people are familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, and there's some differences, and we don't really need to get too much into that, but it's a very holistic style of acupuncture where we look at the cycles of nature and how they can heal the person through acupuncture alone. So we don't really get into herbs as much as maybe TCM does.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of history behind that, but it's the first form of acupuncture that was ever practiced.
Interesting.
So that's kind of where I started in terms of acupuncture. I used it primarily to help in my own life with starting with TCM. To help stimulate labor. That was one of the first experiences. And then I came in contact with classical 5-element acupuncture, which is what I practice now. And it just was a very healing experience for me, for hormones, stress, female stuff was really the beginning for me in my journey. And then I knew I wanted to do something in the healing arts, and I just wasn't sure exactly what it was. And that the first time I had it, I knew that was what I wanted to do. Interestingly, I had 2 children, both of whom had eczema. And with my daughter, she's the oldest, I was on bed rest, and because of that, I was upstairs working full time as a medical transcriptionist, and at the time, I had to have a lot of protein, and the thing that I thought would be good was peanuts, peanut butter sandwiches. It's easy. My hubby could help me get it, and for 3 months, I ate a lot of peanuts and on bed rest, and had a lot of preterm labor issues. And when she was born, and until she was 2, I didn't realize that she had a peanut allergy.
Wow.
So at 2, she went to grab a piece of candy and ingested it. I realized it, didn't think too much of it, and in about 45 minutes, she turned blue and
Oh my gosh.
anaphylaxis.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, and I had no idea what was going on, but I really feel like something told me I had some children's Benadryl, poured it down her throat, and that saved her life. Otherwise, the paramedic said she probably wouldn't have made it. So she had a very, very serious allergy. Her dad had an allergy to a pretty rare nut, not macadamia, but Brazil nuts.
Okay.
That he knew about. And then my son was born. So up until that point, she had eczema horribly. She was in socks as a baby. They wanted me to put steroids on her. I didn't do it because I felt like I wanted to know what was causing it.
That you get a good mom award for that one.
Well, I feel like I was just really fortunate and lucky to, because at that point, I hadn't started acupuncture school. So we do learn in acupuncture school about suppression meds. Most Western meds are suppression meds, antiviral, anti this, anti that, right?
Yep.
So they're suppressing something. Well, they work.
Yep.
However, it's not nature's way to do it that way. Okay, so there's a side effect. There's a con. There's pros and cons to all things.
Yep.
So if you can go on a medicine for a short period of time, it clears something up and you don't have to be on it your whole life. I think we've all done that.
Yeah.
But what I get so frustrated about with this condition is that when I've gone with my kids, when I've gone with, my husband. So my husband was, as far as we can tell, 5 years old or possibly younger when he first started steroid use. So I just want to say that real quick, but go back to my kids. So my son also developed eczema, and he also had colic. I said to myself, I see on different colic forums how many parents are putting their kids on different meds, and it's distressing to say the least. But again, my focus has always been, what is the cause? What is causing this? Now, with that said, I did have a good allergist that I took my daughter to when she was very young, at the point of the anaphylactic event. And he said something. He said, sometimes allergies, eczema, asthma, it's cumulative. So you have a seasonal allergy, you have a contact allergy, you have food that you're eating, okay, to name a few. And one day you might have all three of those and have a really severe reaction. And you think it's the food or the environmental allergy, but it may just be that it was all three at once.
Good point.
So I always remembered that. And he said, she'll likely be a very healthy person and healthy child, but her immune system is overreactive. So there's so many layers to all of this, but what I feel is that I was so fortunate with my daughter and my son to not start the steroid merry-go-round.
Yeah.
She then, so fast forward, when she was 24, she was prescribed a steroid, not prescribed, but recommended to take a steroid lip balm, and didn't realize it had steroids in it, used it liberally, and then realized it had steroids and stopped using it and developed a very localized, severe reaction that she healed very quickly from. But she's the one that alerted us to the whole TSW stuff. And I
Wow.
realized, when I met my husband, I was hoping that he would go off of all of the steroids, but it just didn't happen. He had to make that choice. And when his daughter went through it and he saw it, he realized, I bet you this is what's been going on
Wow.
forever in me. So that's how he became aware of his journey. Started in October of 21.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's the positive that I see with him is his mood, interestingly. Number one. Number two, I would say it's his worst allergy season right now in the spring. And the allergens right now are anywhere between, 7 and 12. Over the past couple weeks, it's been near, 11 and a half. So it's really high.
Yeah.
And normally he's popping antihistamines like crazy.
Yeah, like M&Ms. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he would be on topicals and a nasal steroid. He does have asthma. However, one thing that I will say that we learn in acupuncture school is that when you drive the illness deeper, so we talk about skin, that's the outermost,
Mm-hmm.
aspect of our body. Let's put some topical steroids on it. It'll clear it up. Well, it drives it deeper. Then we've got some allergies. Okay. Now we're breathing. Our breathing has been impacted. So you see how you drive it deeper into the body.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying, the hard part with him is at age 54, it was kind of scary to say, well, let's just take him off the steroid inhaler. So he's still on that. But I'm looking at ways to get him off of that because I feel like we're probably not seeing as much healing as we could be.
Sure. Sure.
But he is healing. There is healing happening. It's just not, I feel like we're chasing a mouse around the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine listen, breathing issues are no joke. And I had sport induced asthma when I was about, I remember, I think it was around when I started to play soccer at like 8 years old. And knock on wood, I had that giant inhaler, I had that steroid inhaler, which luckily that I haven't had issues with that in a very, very, very long time. But
Good.
when it comes to your breath and breathing, it's that feeling is when you can't breathe. There's nothing like it. And there's no way to describe it for people that don't suffer with that. It's the same thing. I used to suffer with tons of migraine headaches. And I remember talking to people that were like, what's a headache? I've never had a headache. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not know what a headache is? Right. And same thing with TSW, same thing with when you're not walking in someone else's shoes, it's so hard to describe.
And I'm a caregiver. I'm not a patient.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing this and witnessing it. But what I can say is that overall, I'm seeing improvements and healing. It's hard sometimes to see it. Like when you're a parent and you have a baby, everyone's like, oh my gosh, your baby's grown so fast. And you're like, really?
Right.
They have, but you don't have that ability to see it. And I worry sometimes that patients don't see the healing because they're too close to it,
Absolutely. Well,
but
and that's why I suggest to everybody, in fact, I'm in the process right now of creating, I'm very excited about it, but a really cool journal, like a tool for people that are going through this, customized just for this kind of healing journey. Because for me, back in 2 summers ago, I started to just take random pictures of myself. When I figured out what this was, when was that? Probably like October, November of 2021. I started to take tons of pictures, but also videos. And what even last night when I couldn't fall asleep, I'm having my itchy attacks, and I go through my computer and I looked at this, I kind of pulled them all together in chronological order. I started to look, and when you see it like that,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's why before and after photos, do so much good for people. But
Yes.
it's unbelievable. And in this kind of crazy journey, and I'm sure you've seen this with your husband, it is truly a roller coaster, because you can hit the rock
Yes.
bottom that you think is rock bottom, start to make slight
Right.
improvements, and then you go down 10 layers deeper, right? And it's so,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
overall, I think the way to kind of measure, at least from all the conversations I'm having and through my own journey, it's noticing the period of time, how much quicker that recovery starts to become, right? So if it took
Okay.
like a full month of like slowly the symptoms started to get better, as opposed to, okay, next time you have a horrible flare up or a horrible, you got your issues and the condition coming up, you start to
Yeah.
notice that the time frame is shorter and shorter. And that's kind of when people say, how do you know, it just is exhausting, like how do you know if you're
It is.
recovering? I think what you said is true. It's like once what it is, that's the first step. And then you decide you're making a
Yes.
commitment. I'm not going to use
Yep.
these drugs. I'm not going to put this on my body or in my body. You have to believe and understand that you are healing. Even when you start to relapse, it's still part of the process. So you just have to like
Exactly.
absolutely trust that. And I love that we're having a conversation from your standpoint, from a caregiver standpoint, because I think it's just so important for people to know that your family, your friends, the people that are like in your corner, it's so hard for them as well. I can only imagine, I have a little boy, he's almost 11, and um it's like the most painful thing when your kids are going through it, but also your spouse or your partner. Like
Yeah.
what's the emotional, I'd love to know the emotional toll, and or just like what it's been like really for you, truly.
um, well, it brings me to tears.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, there's so many layers to that as well. Like it it affects your life. That's the selfish piece, is it affects your life.
Yes.
And so there's that part of it where it's like, gosh darn it. Everything in our life, like our diet at first, everything, like I felt like I was responsible.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a spouse. I buy the food, I cook the food, all of that stuff. I
Yeah.
have my business, he has his business, we're both self-employed. And so it's been on some levels though, if I hadn't been self-employed, I don't, I understand 100% people that are not able to work. My husband pushed through it somehow. He lost so much weight. He was thin to begin with.
Hmm.
Um, we've had moments, we've had arguments. It does get frustrating to
Yeah.
see to see him itching all the time. It is hard, the skin everywhere. I mean, but it's so harsh to say that. Um, you wouldn't say that to a chemo victim, somebody
Right.
who's going through chemo. You wouldn't say, well, gosh darn it. So there's this piece where it's really hard to vocalize it, I guess. But it is frustrating. Um,
Yeah.
and it's very, for me, what's really, there's a lot of PTSD around this
Yes.
for the caregivers and the patients.
Yeah.
And that piece, is under talked about.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean,
um,
I started to notice that just going to a regular local drugstore, and my son had like a bug bite, right? And I would instantly think, let me think, go to the Benadryl cream. And when you see anti-itch cream or whatever, I have this instant fear take over me, thinking, oh my gosh, wait, if that has even a point zero something percent
yeah,
steroid in it, I can't touch it. I can't touch it. It's like this massive amount of fear, and the
right.
PTSD is just so real. And I think
It is.
it's
It
interesting to
is
point
real.
out for you too, right? As the caregiver, you have it as
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. And um, yeah, there's so many. so many things, but for instance, we can't sleep in the same room because there's just no way we
You would
would
never
drive each
sleep.
other insane.
Yeah, right.
So I try to encourage him I do try to encourage things. And that's where I struggle because I'm a caregiver, because I'm in healthcare, I feel like I want people to heal quicker.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just do. And I don't know that that'll ever change. But there is a piece that I think, one thing that I really want to touch on, and that I haven't seen in any of the forums. And that is that when you use suppression meds with many Western meds, what you're doing is taking away the symptoms. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But you're not dealing with, you're not dealing with the cause, and you're also not dealing with, like, what would the body have done if we hadn't done this? Okay. Well, we would have been itchy. We would have had red skin. Okay. So let's just look at those two things, itchy, red skin. Okay. Which I had with both my kids. With my daughter, I figured it out. Thankfully, it was 2 years of hell. Okay. She still had eczema. Okay. Underlying eczema. Mostly the peanut took most of it away. I would say, in my opinion, 90%. But there's still that hereditary piece, perhaps, going on, okay, of something in the environment, in her food, stress. We don't know. I was probably stressed as a parent, right? So, but when you look at my husband, who's 54, all those years that he could have been learning how to deal with the stress of eczema, the stress of itching and redness, that was taken away.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken away because it was suppressed. And so then when you take the drug away, you have a person who's not only dealing with this massive inflammation, because that's all steroids do. Okay. They just take redness away, inflammation. Once that's gone and the body has this huge inflammatory response, no wonder patients are just like, oh my God. I mean,
Yep.
And it's like highway robbery to me.
I totally agree.
It's like you don't have that chance. And it makes me so angry, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I said this, I think, on a different episode or a different conversation with someone else on the show, that I wish so badly, in an ideal, in a perfect world, in my perfect world, you have doctors for all different things, right? You have your primary care physician, you have your dermatologist, you have your gynecologist, you have your maybe naturopath doctor, whatever. You have a whole list. You have your chiropractor. You have a whole list of people, and none of them talk to each other because, obviously, look, I mean, they're running a business. Their time is limited, and it just doesn't work like that. But to your point, each one doctor only knows exactly what they know. And if everybody, or even if human beings, if we were all taught, it's up to us, our health is completely up to us, and we're the only people that care the most about our own health. We need to spend a little bit more time and kind of connect our own dots and see what this doctor says and compare notes with this one. And but people, we're in such a fast-paced society. People don't have the tools, they don't have the resources, they don't think that they have to do it until it's too late, or until something like this happens, right? So you're exactly right. And from a parent standpoint, you see your kids suffering, you listen to your doctor, you just want quick, immediate results because you hate seeing them in pain. And so, and then you have that PTSD, and you have that regret, and you just feel that responsibility, which isn't fair. You're doing your best. But it's truly sad. And I'm so glad that you're pointing out, as the professional that you are, that really steroids, they're masking the issue, right? They are, taking the inflammation away at a surface level. They're not getting to that root cause. They're not giving that person a fighting chance to just really kind of suffer. And I think I'm jumping around right now, but I feel like suffering, look, it's a part of life, whatever form it takes for you, whatever. And we have to kind of be okay to suffer to a certain degree, without instantly rushing for a quick band-aid over a broken bone. We don't want to quickly just quickly take away the issue without really knowing what the true issue is. Right. So
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that.
And then, as an adult, the other thing that really angers me is when you're an adult, let's say, you, for instance, because when did you start using steroids?
So I'm pretty sure I was born with eczema, but I wasn't officially diagnosed until I was 2. So I know, I've been taking steroids. I'm 35 years old right now. I mean, I've been taking steroids on and off, oral and topical, since 2 years old.
Okay. So, with holistic medicine, one of the things, that you learn straight away is, the body is a whole organism, and it's a whole,
Yeah.
Now we have specialties in Western medicine with dermatology, and all the different specialties, but they look at things, pieces, parts. Okay. And there can be healing, like if if your leg is, severed, for instance, in a car crash, I would probably go to the doctor for that, right?
Yep.
But when it comes to many other things, looking at the body as a whole, and even in the case of a severed leg, you're looking at the body as a whole. We got to take care of the whole by, doing a tourniquet or stopping the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always, if we look at it as a patient, as a human, as we look at it from the whole perspective, putting something on our skin and having a dermatologist say it's safe, holding our hands and saying it's safe, and yet also on the side effects sheet, you look at the side effects and they never talk about that. It's very interesting to me. And then the HPA axis suppression that I've been very vocal about on the forums.
Mm-hmm.
It happens with steroids, it happens with pain meds, and it happens with antidepressants, to name a few. It's the thermoregulation piece,
Mm-hmm.
it's the itch piece, it's our homeostasis. It's a very important thing. And I don't think too many doctors say anything about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what TSW really is. It is HPA axis suppression. And the thing that worries me is when you use that term, are the doctors dismissing it because they're like, nah, we don't even recognize that term.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of what I think the problem is, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I want to go back to something that you said earlier about one of the things the biggest changes that you've noticed in your husband, and you said his mood. Can you expand upon that and what you meant by that?
Well, I would say there's a less prone to anger. So the liver, I can only speak really I can speak more in terms of the liver and what it does. So in Chinese medicine, the liver is associated with the emotion of anger. So when we see patients that so the liver and the gallbladder are paired, and they're kind of like siblings in the body system. And so the liver is the most what we call yin organ, and the gallbladder is yang. So when there's anything in the body, the liver has to process. And so steroids, they muddy the water, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they make the processes of the body less pure. So the body's like, okay, I've got the steroids. I'm continually getting these steroids coming into the body, antihistamines, whatever else. And then I've got the rest of the world coming into my body that I have to process as well. And you're telling me to suppress over here, but you're putting things in my body that I don't want. So then the liver is confused, and I saw recently on a forum, a doctor had admitted that treating people is very frustrating. Yeah. Interestingly, frustration, anger. Okay, frustrating. Okay. The thing about it is frustrating. It has been frustrating for me in treating him because I'm not treating him and nature. I am treating the steroids. I am treating the suppression. So when I treat him, guess what the body wants to do? It wants to push it out, get out of my system.
Yep.
Okay. So sometimes after treating him, there is a flare, and that is normal. We're trained to say to ourselves, that may be positive.
Yeah.
It's the body trying to push it out.
I love that and that's such a good point. When you think of, acne medication, or if you think of even just a regular detox, everything is coming out, whether that's you going to the bathroom, if it's like a colon cleanse, or if it's a skin kind of detox. Maybe you have all these pimples coming out and acne breaking out, and you're like, oh my God, I'm making it worse. When in reality, it's purging, like everything junky, gunky, it's coming out, which is a good thing. But people freak out and think, oh my gosh, I got to stop whatever it is I'm doing because I'm making it worse. And in reality, you're not. So
yeah,
I think that's good.
And sometimes, for many things, like sometimes fasting can be really, helpful to make you aware of things. And it isn't easy. I mean, this is a very, it is frustrating.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Don't I know it? I feel for both you and your husband. I mean, I'm just grateful that you were such a good mom. And this is no shame to any parent, even my own mother. I mean, but to take a stand and say, before I just rush into something, like, let me just do a little bit more digging. I know now for me as a parent, like there's always things we wish we could have done differently. So I just, cause we're learning, we're humans, we make mistakes, but I think, just you even doing that, I know that you have the guilt, and we all carry some level of guilt for many things, but I just think being kind to ourselves and giving ourselves some grace, and whether you're the caregiver or the patient or the victim or whatever you want to call it, it's just, we're just doing the best we can with the information we've got, and I think that's why having you on the show and just having information like this out there is just one step in the right direction to just getting multiple viewpoints and different angles of this, and just spreading that awareness.
And one of the things I want to mention on that topic that's very, very dear to my heart is these parents that their children are being taken away by social services in all different countries because of TSW.
That's heartbreaking.
The thing I want to say to those moms, dads is there are holistic doctors, there are naturopaths, acupuncturists. It is not a well-known thing though. No. And so what I suggest is finding a doctor who listens. That's what you want.
Yes.
Okay. And they do exist. But it's not easy. So no fault to the parents. It's not easy, but it's essential in this particular case that you have a doctor that understands. Now, if I hadn't seen this with my daughter, with my husband, honestly, I mean, I would have thought they had I've seen this with chemo burns, radiation burns, 3rd degree sunburn. But man, to put steroids on that is just, you would never do that, right? You would never put steroids on a sunburn.
Right. Right.
So, and when my husband first, developed this, I looked at it and I had just had a severe burn myself. And I thought, this is like a burn. So initially we did put aloe straight from the plant, and it took the redness right away for him.
Yeah.
Obviously there was more to it than that, but it is fascinating to me, honestly.
Well, and see, that's a good point you just brought up, because listen, medicine has come such a long way over the centuries, and it's not, there's a time and a place for it, and it's incredible what we can do with modern medicine. But on the flip side, there are so many simple, natural, regular, like small things, like an aloe plant, right? Like instead of running to a drugstore and buying like an anti-burn cream or this thing or that thing, there's sometimes things in your own backyard or things that you can just buy for a couple dollars, or using a plant or herbs and things like that, where we've gotten so far away from such simple things that actually work, and they're without the side effects, without all the, the prescriptions needed and such. And it's another thing that I wish that there was so much more education, or even just, I forget what the statistic is in America, but it's some ridiculous, every however many seconds, there's a new pharmaceutical commercial on the television. And it's just like, some of them can be life-saving, and some, I'm not here to bash them, but there's not enough out there about just like get multiple opinions too, right? Like my dad had cancer twice, and I thank God, I mean, he had it's been now a year, thank God he's completely fine, but he had bladder cancer, and the first doctor he went to was like, well, you're going to have a whole life change, because there's nothing I can do. We have to take the bladder out and give you an external bag. And he went to, I'm based in Pennsylvania, so he went to University of Penn for another opinion, and they said, I'm not going to do that to you. Like if I can open you up, and if I can do what I think I can do, we're not going to do that. We're going to create a new bladder using your small intestine, and you're not going to need a bag. Your life's going to be the same. And if he didn't do that, if he didn't get that opinion, his whole life right now, and he's only 63 years old, like his whole life would have been completely
That's
different,
wonderful,
right? So
that is true.
And it's the same thing with, like you said, Western medicine, there's a place for it, absolutely. And dermatology, they don't know a lot, most of them don't know anything about TSW, but if there were more resources for people, like, hey, let me try a homeopath doctor, let me try a naturopath doctor, let me try an acupuncturist, let me just get some more opinions and see if there's other modalities or things that can help. It's just your whole life could be changed for better or for worse, depending on who
it's a balance. It's always, absolutely. I feel like if there's one word for this life, it's about balance. And there's also the oath that doctors take, do no harm.
Correct.
So I think there's a balance there sometimes. None of us are God. We can't always heal any, people. But what I'm seeing with the steroid use and abuse of prescribing it is it's on a level that I can't even believe. I mean, for diaper rash, for your baby eats something and drools. I mean, that, come on.
I know.
These things are going to happen.
And I won't name any names. I mean, I have a beautiful, beautiful baby nephew. He's 1.5 years old. And I have tons of friends of mine that have young children, babies, and not pointing any of them out in particular, of course, but it's just, we have such a society that's fear-based right now. And it's leading us to make really quick, irrational decisions. And, and my mom, same thing, right? Like I was 2, I had a rash. My mom was like, oh my gosh, I got to take care of it. And I did this too with my own son and certain other, he didn't have eczema or anything, but we get so scared and we want to help.
Absolutely.
But the problem with that is half the time as children or even as adults, which you obviously notice with your children, right? You have something like eczema, you have some kind of issue pop up. 9 times out of 10, it's not even affecting, like there's some of my friends have children with rashes and they freak out, but if the child's not even having any issue with it, right? So you quickly as the parent, oh my gosh, something must be really wrong, I have to fix it. Well, sometimes if we just take a step back and like let things play out of the system on their own. Now, I'm not saying if this was like obviously, God forbid, an emergency situation, but a lot of the
Right.
times I have a friend of mine whose baby, the cheeks got all red. Well, it was because he was teething, and
Exactly.
she
Yeah.
immediately ran, and the doctor said, "Oh, it could be XYZ. We'll throw a steroid on." And I'm like, he's a baby, like it's a baby,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
And
I'm like, oh, that's just not, instead of, hey, let's maybe do some Aquaphor or Vaseline, or let's just pause and not do anything and just see, is the child upset and bothered by it? Because if not, it could be anything, right?
right.
It could just be teething, right? So you sometimes we have to just stop to react and take a minute before we respond and figure out what we want to do.
Yes. And I could talk for hours. I mean, the other piece with babies too is that I see is I didn't see it when I was raising my babies, of course, didn't have that wisdom. Which that's the thing. You learn things as you go. There's no manual. And they're crawling. They're
Yeah.
crawling over everything. And
Yeah.
I noticed a huge improvement with my daughter when she started walking. There was an improvement.
Right.
So,
And then you
and when,
think, well, she wasn't rubbing her face on all the dirt on the floor and all the things and the toys,
yeah,
and sometimes it's as simple as that. Exactly.
yeah. And when I quit breastfeeding, she wasn't getting any of that peanut protein anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then, obviously she had the reaction, and it kind of cracks me up in some ways. Thank God she survived, but it cracks me up because I feel like someone was like, we're going to make it really obvious to you,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful about that too, even though I would never wish it upon her or anyone.
Of
But it
course.
was
Of
like,
course.
it is challenging trying to figure it out. So I do understand doctors wanting to go to the quick fix,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work. It does not work.
And I agree. And I think if only more doctors or even just more people understood that, hey, if you're really struggling horribly, we can give you something really quick, but just please understand that this is not going to fix the problem. I wish more people would say, I'm going
Yeah.
to help you right now temporarily, but I do want you to know this is something that should take some investigating and some research on your own, or we can work and talk about what these things might be to cause this issue, but this isn't going to fix you. This isn't
And
going to
why?
be right.
Yeah. And why is it that when you take like certain other steroids, you have tests done?
Mm-hmm.
I believe. Again, I'm not prescribing meds, so I don't need to know this. But I think it would be there's a whole nother piece out there that I feel like needs to be discussed, which is looking at topical steroids. They're prescribing them for eczema. They're saying eczema is a lifelong condition, which I personally don't believe.
I agree.
But okay, if you're saying it's a lifelong condition and that's what they say, eczema, allergies, asthma, you're going to have it your whole life. And they don't want you to be on steroids your whole life.
Right. What's the
There's
solution?
a disconnect there.
Exactly.
And it's pretty simple. So why are we allowing the medical community to do this?
It's criminal in a lot of ways, and it's a tragedy. So I agree with you, and we know that that's not true, right? Because I know, so there's so many case studies out there. And we have this thing called the internet today where there's people sharing their real life experiences where they have the allergy, asthma, eczema thing. They have been cured. They have fixed it. So whether that's diet related, lifestyle related, whatever it is, we know that if there's even one person out there that had it bad as a kid and doesn't have it as an adult, we know that that's a lie, right? We have to at some point get together, pool the information together and say, come on, we gotta do better than this. We have to just stop saying that, because that makes people depressed and sad, knowing that, there's no way out of this, but there are people that have figured it out. So let's stop saying that.
It's very similar to the, opioid stuff. I mean, I used to do medical transcription for many different specialties. And what I found so frustrating through that is we're treating every patient the same.
Yeah.
maybe weight difference, there'll be a different dosage, but you have this, we do this. We have this, we do this. It's a great money-making system.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily a great healing system.
You just said a mouthful right there. That's exactly it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you for hours. I want to respect your time. But
it's not dismissing everything in Western medicine. Again, it's
definitely not. No.
So,
and listen, I have doctors in my family. I mean, thank God for doctors, right? Thank God for medicine. Thank God for a lot of those things. It's just there's still so much. We have still such a long way to go. And I think there is a lot of good, but there's also a lot of stuff that needs to be called out and addressed, because there's too much happening that just shouldn't be happening. And, me, your husband, we fell, I don't want to say victim. We're victorious. We are warriors. We are going to be okay. It's not the end. It's just a really rough period of time. And that's something that I want anyone listening right now. This you could be at rock bottom, and this can feel like the worst thing in the entire world. And for a lot of us, this is going to be the hardest thing we've ever had to go through. But it's not. On the bright side, we know we're not crazy, right? We know in the intro to this podcast, it says, like, you're not crazy. You're going to heal. This isn't in your head. This is very real. But it's when you can have someone like you, a caregiver, and people in your corner, and really passionate about just being there for you through this, because there's very limited stuff. Like you said, you can try to heal somebody, but a lot of this is time, right? A lot of this is, it's going to go through its course.
And I can't take away, I want to definitely get this one thing in before we're done, but I can't take away the 50 years that my husband's body, mind, and spirit was told by multiple different doctors.
Yeah.
This is the only thing.
Yeah.
This is the only thing. And that's just not the case. And so when I talk to people on these forums or people that I know and my husband, I say, you're making up for however many years you've been on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I say that to my patients, regardless of the condition. Let's say it's back pain. They've had back pain for 10 years. I said, well, can you give me 10 months to help you? Hopefully it'll take 3 sessions, but remember, you've been dealing with this for 10 years.
Yeah. So
your body is in a pattern of pain, and we have to shake that up and move things around and try different things. And that takes time,
for sure. I think that's a great point. People, we live in that microwave society where we want results immediately. And it's just to fix all those years of wrongdoing, give yourself understand it's going to take time.
But also, one of the biggest pieces in the medicine that I practice is we focus on the spirit. Okay.
I love that.
We focus on that first, because that's what drives the mind and then the body to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I see people on these forums that are just despondent, and understandably despondent. Okay. So what I try to encourage those people, and sometimes I reach out personally, is do everything in your power. So before you had this problem, before you had TSW, what did you do that made you happy? What did you do that brought you joy? You need to do those things big time now. Like,
yes, totally.
It needs to be like so important. And so I see people not working well. Sometimes working brings people joy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking that away, and that's, I get it. But then you have to replace it with something. Yes. And that's where I worry about these people. I really worry for these people if they're not getting that support. So I guess what I'm saying is, I really hope that all these people get some support, and it may not be from their dermatologist,
Yeah. I think most times, unfortunately, it's not, but that's okay. That's why we have support groups. That's why we have friends. That's why we have family. That's why, and again, if you don't have friends and family, go find a support group, get involved, find people that are, that you can kind of walk side by side along this journey with. And you're right. I'm reading actually a phenomenal, for the second time, a phenomenal book. You might have heard of it, and it's actually on my website under like the shop tab. It just links right over to Amazon for you, but it's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's
Oh,
all about the quantum physics. It's all about the mind and the
nice.
spirit connection, about how you actually are way more in control with things than you even realize. And a lot of it
Yeah.
all stems from the mind, what you're telling yourself. Like
Yeah.
there's, what you say becomes
Yep.
reality, or like, what you
Yep.
speak into existence becomes a reality. So this is such a
Yep.
mental battle as much as a physical battle. And I just can't agree with you more that it's do the
Hmm.
things that bring you joy, make you happy, because this is a very dark time and it doesn't have to always feel
Yes.
so dark, right? You can find the light, you can find the things that make you happy, that make life worth living, that you get excited about opening your eyes, even though it's painful and horrible and so frustrating. You have to kind of trick your mind sometimes into thinking like, nope, this is okay. I'm healing. I'm doing what I can. Life is good. I'm going to heal. Right. Like it's
Exactly.
just, I
Yep.
love everything that you just said. And I want to ask one last question before we go.
Sure.
What advice would you have for a caregiver right now that's listening to this show, this episode? What advice or what wisdom would you give to them?
Same as I just did for the sufferers, which is take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put yourself last, because you can't help them in any way, shape, or form if you're depleted. Just like nurses, we know that
Definitely.
what we saw with COVID and how the nurses
Yeah.
struggled. So you have to fight against that guilt of having fun yourself, maybe going out with a friend and having a cocktail or two, um, taking a hike, just getting some separation from it, because it does become, and I, my daughter has told me, Mom, but there is a hard part for me. I want to see, I'm passionate about this. But to take a separation and get out in the sun, take your dog for a walk, do some yoga, drink your water, do all the things that you need to do to be healthy yourself
Yeah.
is still really important. And um, it is a journey, and it is. I wouldn't have chosen this time. COVID, all these things that have been coming at us.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and I'll tell you, there is healing going on under the surface that we
Yeah.
can't see.
I love
You
that.
know,
I think so
it's like
good.
road rash. You get in an accident and you get road rash, and it looks worse before it gets better,
Yeah.
but it's still healing.
Yeah. And that's true for a lot of things, right? Sometimes it peaks and it gets unbearable right before like this rainbow at the end, right? The
Yeah.
sunshine and the healing happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
we're still going to have flares. We have
yeah,
stress, we have triggers, we're still going to have those things. We're not
sure.
removing that. We're removing the steroids so that the body and nature can do the healing for us,
I love that.
unencumbered. Yeah.
I
So
absolutely love everything you just brought to the table and to this episode. This is just so, so valuable. I can't wait to, just continue to share it, because I think your message from your standpoint, your point of view is really important, and especially with your background. So
thank you.
I appreciate you for being you're in the corner for your husband and voicing it out there for the rest of the world. So you matter, and this episode means a lot to me. So I just want to thank you for spending all this time with us, and you're awesome. So I can't wait to continue following, and please give your husband a hug from all of us and from me, and tell him we're thinking of him and holding that space for him to heal. And we hope he gets a speedy recovery.
Thank you so, so much for what you're doing, and I appreciate it. I think it's a wonderful, any awareness is wonderful. So congratulate yourself on that, and I wish you're in a similar place time
Yeah.
wise with your
Yeah,
healing. So it'll be interesting to keep in touch, and I'll look at
definitely.
that book you recommended, and thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, Brenda. Take care.
All right. All right. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.